All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know. That Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives.
And that is the definition of a hostile witness on cross-exam. Mark, you still with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I enjoyed that last caller you had there, too.
Mark, I know you're my financial guru. Tell everybody who you are and tell everybody your disclaimer you have to give since I played mine already.
Sure. Name's Mark Virginis. I'm president of Mirus Financial Partners. That's spelled M-I-R-U-S, Mirus Financial Partners. I'm an independent registered advisor with Financial Network Investment Corporation, member SIPC. Mirus Financial Partners and the Financial Network are not affiliated. There you go.
All right, there we go. So let's see who we've got for callers here. Mark, caller number 1. Bill, you're on weekend appointment with Carl Rominger and Mark Virginis.
Hi. Well, I have a question for the that we were talking about a little earlier. For wills and things like that, how far back can they go? Let's say when we've had this problem, a sibling was taking care of the parents die, and then they find out there's an incredible amount of things missing.
Right.
I mean, do you have to go into some kind of legal thing to check those things out? Because, what the will says isn't there anymore?
Well, and these always become factual problems. And what do I mean by that is, how do you prove what's missing? And so you say, well, when I was over at Dad's house, but month before he died, he had a gold coin collection, and when he died, there was no gold coins found. How do you prove who took them, where they went, and what happened? So if your brother-in-law is dumb enough to say, oh, well, yeah, look at the money I got from selling the gold coins, then everybody knows. But if nobody wants to pipe up and say that they have them or they're sitting on them or whatnot, how do you prove who took them? And so as you can see, I mean, it just becomes a huge problem.
Well, and it's normally family, and I mean that's where you end up with problems. Is that to go after this? Do you have to? I mean, you alienate the family, or you put brother against sister, or whatever. It just gets horrible at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, the evidentiary problems are there. And of course, the other thing I find, and I'll give you 2 good stories. One with gold coins, where we talked to a couple of the relatives, and they're like, "Dude, Grandpa sold those gold coins in like 1979." People are remembering his gold coin collection, but they're forgetting that nobody'd seen it in 30 years.
Right.
The other thing that comes to mind is the one where, and I really like this one, guys like, I saw my father's tax return, and he had $58,000 in interest income. And Mark, you'll appreciate this one.
Right.
And the next year he had 40-some thousand in interest income, and then he didn't have anything the next year, and then he died, and so he must have been sitting on a lot of money and have all this interest income. So when I investigated and I talked with the lawyers handling the estate and we looked everything over, what we found out was, yeah, he did have a lot of interest income. He actually got that interest income on about $150,000 that he had in some kind of crazy junk bond that was paying these enormous yields. And the other lawyer said, when somebody got a hold of him and realized where he had his money, they had him take him out of that. And so that phenomenally high yield, which is kind of like, winning at the craps table, gave a false impression, because we all assume, right, he's probably getting what percentage return would we expect somebody to actually get in a year's investment on 100,000, 7%, 8%,
right.
Maybe if they're doing real good.
Right now, yeah.
Right, if they're doing real good, and let's say times are really flush, and you might even figure that that's a 20% yield. So you're still figuring $60,000 is coming off of $300,000 at a 20% yield, not not the $100,000 that was there when Dad died. And so you have all these different reasons, and all these recriminations go back and forth, and there's no great mechanism for it. All right, Bill. Anything else we can talk about? I think we lost Bill.
Yeah, cell phone. What it is.
I dropped Bill. We'll let Bill go. Yeah, Mark. So the answer on that one is, and I'm sure you see this sometimes too, where people are like, "Well, I thought Dad had this big life insurance policy with you," and you're like, "He did, but he cashed it a few years ago."
Yeah, he said because there was no federal estate tax anymore, he didn't need any life insurance, and I told him it was going to come back in 2011 if Congress didn't act, but he decided he didn't want it anymore, and I have a signed document right here. And they're like, gulp,
Right, I know. Let's see, who's next here? Jay, you're on with Carl and Mark.
How you doing? Kind of a legal question. The lady with the will kind of brought it to mind. She has to go down to the courthouse. I happen to live in Harrisburg, of course, so it wouldn't be a big problem for me to go down to the Dauphin County Courthouse. I guess my question is, why aren't wills, why aren't all this stuff, why isn't it available online?
Some of it is, and I'll give you an example. If you have a password, I think York County, they don't make it publicly available, but I know that the lawyers at least can get into the Prothonotari's office online. In Cumberland County, you can now get into the Prothonotari's office fully online and search all the files. The biggest problem they're having is that there's a lot of personal information, names, dates of birth, social security numbers in a lot of the files.
Which I'd be able to see if I go to the courthouse.
That's right.
Pay money to see it.
That's right, and actually just go in there and see it for free. And in fact, if I was a professional identity thief, I'd start at the courthouse. But I'm not.
Well, okay, what's gonna change? Okay, obviously they can charge online too, but the point is, why make it? The same thing is going to happen if I go to the courthouse and I want to get information. I can get information.
Right.
But and they don't have. Some of the courthouses may be different, but I know it's going to be hard for me to find a place to park, and I got to go through.
Well, listen. I mean, the infrastructure is getting there, and a lot of it is available online. A lot of the real estate stuff's available online now, so it's slowly getting there. But listen, if you're asking government to get to where private...
Let me ask you why the law is kind of a fuddy-duddy, and I mean this because lawyers, you may be different, of course, but my tendency is that lawyers are like turtles in a little way. I mean, some professions, speed is of the essence. With the law, it's not that way.
There's a couple reasons for that. I think I can explain it. One is that because... Well, listen to this. I can't advertise price, so I can't come on the air here and tell you that I would charge you less for your personal injury case.
Why can't you?
Because the courts have said that we can. Now, the United States Supreme Court said, well, you can advertise price in routine matters and da-da-da-da-da. But nonetheless, you're always at risk of being disbarred or sanctioned by our good bar association.
There's no logic in that. Except
well, there is.
Doctors used to not be able to advertise.
But here's what happens as a result, right? If I can't advertise price, it's hard to compete on price. And if I don't have to compete on price, I probably don't have to compete on efficiency either. And so there's very little incentive for lawyers to build their practice in as sharp a format as possible. Number two,
I see your point.
Number two is that the scheduling of things in court is so slow, because there's so many moving parts, getting witnesses and 3 lawyers and a judge all in the same place, as well as a sheriff and all the other folks you need, can put dates out. So things tend to move slowly between dates. So with all these things, I mean, you're right. It is a very slow. And I'll give you a great example. When almost the entire world was using Word instead of WordPerfect, 75% of law offices were still using WordPerfect when almost nobody else was, because they'd always used it and they just never changed. So talk about turtles. So,
well, I mean, there's all sorts of questions, actually, that kind of procedural stuff. Even the fact that in Pennsylvania, I guess it's still the case, when I was in a murder trial in 1974, you couldn't take notes. As far as I know...
You can now.
You can?
Yes.
In a criminal case?
As long as it's going to last more than 2 days. We only changed that about a year ago. You can also get a written instruction sent back now, too.
It seems like things happen in Pennsylvania
Well, we have no great online filing system in Pennsylvania. The federal court system, I can file everything electronically. It's wonderful. Pennsylvania.
Well, okay, now you're gonna. Now I don't expect you to take the time, but then you'd have to explain to me why is Pennsylvania, and I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I've lived out here for 35 years. Why is it so?
Politics.
Well, why are politics in Pennsylvania any different than anywhere else?
Because we're the most professional politicians in the history of the planet.
Maybe.
Chicago's a second, maybe.
All right.
All right, Jay.
Thanks a lot.
Listen, even Ben Franklin made himself postmaster and did a great job of it, making himself lots of money. And then I think he put his son or somebody in charge later on while he was over in France chasing skirts. Well, somebody's going to get mad at me just for saying that. I think we're up in this segment, right? Hey, you're listening to Weekend Appointment with Carl Rominger. We'll be back after the break. Hey, welcome back to Weekend Appointment. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. And if you don't know me or it's your first time here on the show, make sure you go to weekendappointment.com where you can get your free will kit. That's right, a real free will. We give them away. And it's not a little downloadable form you fill out and forget about. You fill it out, you send it in to me, and we get together and we talk. We go over your situation, and then I custom write it for you at no charge. We'll also go over living wills, powers of attorneys, trusts, and other things if you need it at the same time, but they might not be free, the way of full disclosure. And I've got Mark Virginis joining me here, and Mark's kind of my financial guru. And let's take another caller, Mark. Hey, Larry, what's going on?
I sent in an email, haven't had a response yet, but maybe you might remember it. It was regarding the appeal hearings on property tax reassessments in Cumberland County.
Yeah, you just did that this week, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've already gone through the informal appeal process, and we rejected the offer that was made to us. And so now we've been scheduled for the formal appeal. However, based on the experience we had in the informal appeal, I'm not real confident to accept what they've scheduled for us. They have a little slip of paper that was included with their notice that stated, let's see. Yeah, you have been scheduled for a hearing before one of the assessment appeals board members. You have a right to a hearing before the full board. If you desire a hearing before the full board, please contact the assessment office immediately. You're asked to sign an agreement permitting a single board member to hear your case. Well, at the informal, that's what we had, was a single assessor who heard our case,
Mm-hmm.
and she offered a $14K reduction, and that was unacceptable to us, and she kept fishing around for reasons why our comparables were so much lower than the assessment. And, like our next-door neighbor sold her home, and she was asking, well, was the house sold under duress? And then the other house that's on our same street, she said, I think that house was vacant for a while. And, I don't know whether she's trying to get us to concur with that or whatever, but her comparables, which is on the street behind us, and were more supportive of her assessment number for our house, she proposed that maybe houses on that street sold for more than the houses on our street.
Right.
And so, we don't really feel comfortable going before just a single person who could have the final say on what the assessed value is going to be.
Yeah, and so you can, I think, ask for the full board, right?
Yes, and that's what my intention is, but I've got to contact them right away because we're scheduled for the 16th.
Right. Well, I would recommend that. I also think at this point, if you think that's serious enough, you might want to engage counsel to assist you. You might also want to think about having an appraiser's report, potentially appraisal testimony.
Then you start we've got the homestead credit because we're seniors, and that's a minuscule reduction in the tax.
Right.
And
for the moment.
So to offset the cost, I could spend a bunch of money and never recover the cost if I sold too soon.
That's correct. That's correct. And these are the dilemmas that we have to balance out, which is why people plead guilty to things they didn't do, like speeding sometimes, because it's cheaper to pay the ticket, and the law actually recognizes that.
Right.
But yeah, I would ask for the full board. I think you got a better chance of, if you think you have a good case, you have a better chance of not getting railroaded by somebody's misperceptions.
Well, even with her $14,000 reduction compared to the house next door that sold, that just the difference between those two numbers, we're still looking at about $8,700 higher.
Yeah. So yeah, I would take it to the next step. And if you do it yourself, hey, guess what? Good for you. You might actually accomplish it, and even you've already got partway there.
Yes. Although she did state that
the other panel can go they could go the other way.
That's correct. She said that going before the full board you would not start at her offer. It would start back up at the original assessment.
Right.
So,
I understand that. So you could potentially lose your informal arrangement. So that's your other dilemma. That's how they get you, man.
Yeah, they were. She also stated that many cases are scheduled the same day, and that the board reserves the right to limit our presentation. So I don't know whether I'd get 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or even less than that.
Right. Well, let me know if we can help. Otherwise, I would tell you just put your presentation together and do the best you can.
In my email back to you, I'd asked what your fee might be if we.
The short answer is I don't know exactly what I would charge. I'd have to look at exactly what you'd need, but I can tell you that the new guy in my office, Eric, pretty good at this type of stuff. It's his field, regulatory areas, and I would certainly counsel him to work a break for you with the hopes maybe to use this down the future.
Sure.
All right. So ask for Eric David when you call in.
Eric.
David.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got two first names. We're kind of teasing him about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you.
it.
All right, bye. Let's see, I got Ann holding on the line. Ann, hold on a minute, and we'll get to you. I want to talk to Mark a little bit here. Mark, you guys have much going on with the assessments down in Lancaster County?
Not so much. I mean, we were fortunate. Some years ago, I believe McDonald was his name. He went ahead and put a ton of information online. He moved a lot more technology in the courthouse and eliminated, a ton of money from the commissioner's budget and the court's budget by streamlining and going online.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right in your comment about the Social Security numbers, birth dates, and what have you, because you rely on someone to blacken that out, scan it in, put it online. Well, some people just didn't catch everything, and a couple of people were writing in to the point where a local news station, how they have one of those consumer advocate guys who just try to wow you with different stuff. Well, they complained to him, and he went online to the court system, and he found lots of people's with a lot of deeds or what have you, and a lot of their Social Security numbers and birth dates and so forth on, to the point where the county actually shut down that system until they were able to go through, and you're talking like thousands of documents.
There's software now that's designed to automatically redact them, but of course it assumes that the Social Security number got picked up as a Social Security number, and it's possible that that can still be missed as well. Now we lawyers, all the electronic documents we file, we're supposed to redact and use the first last four letters. It has created a little bit of a rub because it takes what's essentially a completely streamlined filing paperless system and makes you still send a few things in.
Right. And talking about your callers about the wills and so forth, when you get into a will that has a charity, a couple family members, some non-family members, if they would seek the advice of myself or you, we would probably have gone to the route of a testamentary trust or something of that nature to make it a little bit slimmer, easier, and as I'm sure you'll point out to your callers that, no one knows what's in the trust when you go into the prothonotari's office.
Correct.
You want to bypass probate, you want to bypass people looking at your stuff, use a trust, and that helps. Yeah,
and of course, I just had a friend who had a very bad experience with a trust, and I can understand his pain just from little details that I know. And he said, I would never I would never, ever in a million years counsel anybody to do a trust based on my experience. And I was like, well, you're kind of more the exception than the rule.
Yeah, it sounds like he might not have had a good lawyer who drafted that trust.
Well, and you know what? There was a lot of moving parts. And the other problem, of course, is even a well-drafted trust, sometimes the client puts too many things in it or gives too many different family members too much power, and that creates problems too.
Or they never change the ownership, or they never, change title of certain assets to, especially like a living trust. They never make the trust the owner of the asset while they're alive.
Right. Yeah, in this particular case, I think the way I understand it is, the trust was empowered to do all kinds of things, including making loans to the trustees, and and then you run into all these conflicting loyalties amongst the parties. All right, guys, we got to go to break. When we get back from break, you can talk with Carl and Mark here, and we're going to take you in a second here. You listen to Weekend Appointment. Don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com. Is this the one, is this music here? You listen to Weekend Appointment. This is Carl Rominger. But Shane, is that the music where the fish flops at the end of the video?
I believe so. I was just thinking that.
Who is that? Who is that?
Jamming out over there.
Who is that? Who sings that? Do we know? Oh, my gosh. Well, yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure it's the one back in the day with the piano exploding and the fish flopping on the I'm sure some do-gooders somewhere are very upset about that.
This is your MTV.
I never saw a fish flop, and they made me unhappy. It usually means I'm having a good day in the boat. Listen, Weekend Appointment here. You go to weekendappointment.com. You can get your free will. Talking with Mark Virginis here. And, Mark, am I saying your name right again, or am I getting it screwed up again?
That's close. It's Virginis.
Virginis. I'll get it hammered someday. I can't even say wrong. Somebody asked me how to spell Carl the other day, if with a K or C, and I actually said C first. So as you can tell, my brain is completely fried. I don't know how that happened, and I now want to shoot myself for doing that because I get so mad when everybody writes my name with a C, and then I actually said it myself, and people were looking at me like, you idiot. I'm like, well, you asked me. Gwen, you're on with Carl and Mark.
Hi, Carl.
Yes, what's going on?
I was thinking or about to file bankruptcy, and I wanted some information. They said that you can't file bankruptcy and still own your home. I'm paying on it, but keep it. You would lose it too.
No, in a bankruptcy, if you do a Chapter 7 liquidation, you're probably going to have to sell your house if you have equity in it. Although, interestingly, because of the exemption, you'll get the first 20-some thousand in equity back. And that won't even be used to pay down other debts. That'll end up in your hands, which is good to get into a new apartment or something along those lines. But in a Chapter 13, you can actually make provisions to keep paying the mortgage current and catch up on the back owed.
Okay.
So your bank.
I don't owe any back pay, but I'm just snowed under with bills so bad, and I just didn't know. I don't have much choice. I am going to get behind. So I was thinking of filing bankruptcy and still trying to keep my mortgage payments going.
Yeah, absolutely can do that. I don't know if you've talked with a bankruptcy attorney yet or not, but we'd be happy to help you in my office.
Okay, I had called one person. That was the person that told me I couldn't do it. As long as you had equity in your home, you can't do it.
Now, if you have equity in the home, it's possible to secure that in a 13 and still pay down on other debts. So no, it's not as simple as that. And so whoever told you that, I don't know if they got enough information or not, but I would certainly love to take a second look at it for you and see if there's anything we can do.
Okay.
If you want to get hold of my office, it's 241-6070 in Carlisle, and we'd be happy to set something up for you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Let's see here. Ann, you're on with Carl and Mark. Hey, Ann.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Carl. I have a question regarding a distant relative who passed away unexpectedly. I had her power of attorney. I was working with her to get her affairs in order, but unfortunately she died before we expected, suddenly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what step I should take next on her behalf, if anything. She, as I said, she doesn't have a will, and I'm not sure. I understand I have to go before a court to ask permission to proceed or something like that.
Does she have any relatives at all?
No, I'm among her closest relatives. She doesn't have any immediate family.
Okay. Yeah, we could go to the court and have you appointed as the administratrix, meaning that you would be a female administrator for somebody who died without a will. And there's a few things we need to do, but absolutely could do that. And then you would have the power to handle all of her affairs, pay her debts, and then you'd have to follow the laws of intestacy in terms of distributing any property that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And how long does that usually take? I mean, is it
a few months to a year, depending on the complexity of the matter. Now, it's like the Elvis estate or the something like that that's still going on, goes on forever basically. But something like this would be usually wrapped up within a year.
I mean, to get the authority to proceed.
Oh, that could be done in a matter of weeks. Okay. And the only reason it takes a little bit of time is we've got to put notices out, and we've got to make sure that nobody else is going to object. And if there are other next of kin who might want to be involved, we'd have to make sure that they're given an opportunity to do so or sign renunciations, which is basically saying, I don't want to be involved, but I'll take my money if I'm owed it. Okay. But, yeah, we can absolutely help you, Ann. What county is this in?
She was in Dawson.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we could really help you with. So, again, if you want to just call my office, we'll set something up.
Okay.
241-6070 is the office number.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Ann, we'd be happy to help, and if we can be of any assistance, otherwise, just let us know. If you don't call me, I won't be hurt, but again, I do think I can help.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Good luck, Ann.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, that's kind of the typical scenario here. People think they would like to put stuff together, and sometimes you just don't have enough time, which is why I tell people, you got to start doing this stuff when you're young and healthy, not at the last hour when you got to call me out to the York Hospital to go write a will in the cardiac unit.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the last will and testament, it's just so surprising that, 30% of all Americans have a will.
Yeah.
Something ridiculously low.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what was that?
I don't know.
We don't know. That was just some sound arbitrage or something. Who knows?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I gotcha. Can you hear me?
All right.
No.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Can you hear me now? The other thing I wanted to talk to you about maybe in the next segment here, because we got one more segment left after this, I want to talk to you a little bit about life insurance products and long-term care insurance. I want to just touch base on a little bit of those two things because I think those are products that I think a lot of people don't have that they should. Long-term care insurance, of course, very important, but life insurance, particularly for the tax strategies and the wealth transfer strategies that might apply.
Sure.
So, folks, you're listening to Weekend Appointment. I'm attorney Carl Rominger. Make sure you go to weekendappointment.com and look us up there. You can leave questions throughout the week. You can look at the big library of questions and answers we've built up, and, of course, you can get the free will. And I'm also going to be putting a report out on auto insurance at some point here. So when that goes live, if you're a registered user, you'll receive an email notification of the same. Show's Weekend Appointment. I'm Carl Rominger. I'll see you after the break.
God save the United States and this honorable court.
Oh, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Weekend Appointments, the show where we answer your legal questions. And don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com. Rob, you're on with Carl and Mark.
Hey, Carl.
Hey, what's going on?
I have a question for you. My wife just found out that she's pregnant, which is a really good thing.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And she had already talked to her boss about this, and who happens to be the owner of the company. And she's currently a salaried employee, but she was asking him if she could take a 6-month leave of absence. And he has agreed to it. They don't have anything formal in writing, but the emails have been passed back and forth that he's fine with it. And what he said is that he'll give her a 6-month leave of absence, and of course, she comes back and there's work for her to do, he'll bring her back on. If not, then she just won't come back to work.
Right.
My question is what are the implications with that for unemployment? I mean, did we kind of just say, hey, we don't want to work for 6 months, so we just screwed ourselves out of unemployment, or?
That's an interesting question, and I don't know the answer to that. I would suspect that because she's voluntarily leaving, and she's saying it's because of a medical condition. If she said to him, I'm pregnant, and I think I might need to take time off, but I would still work if you could accommodate me, then I think unemployment would squarely be available. If she takes a voluntary layoff but doesn't really have to, I don't think unemployment would be available. And, of course, that time period is going to count against her weeks to qualify, so that if he doesn't have anything available. But I don't know if the fact that you guys are making this agreement tolls any of that. So I really don't know. If you would post that on weekendappointment.com, we could look it up and answer it for you.
Okay.
Carl, the Family Medical Leave Act wouldn't have anything to do with that, would it?
I mean, if she took time out under the Family Medical Leave Act, that probably would toll everything. But I think they have to go through some little machinations on that. So that might be the better way to proceed. So, yeah, Mark, why don't I say, I'll have Eric in my office, and I take a look at it and see what we would recommend if there's a better way to do it, if that makes sense, Rob.
Oh, okay.
I wish I could answer them all off the top of my head. I really did.
No, that's all right, because I was when my wife had told me about that, I was like, wow, this is a question for Carl. I was like, oh, man, I got to call him now. So, I do, I'm already registered on your website and stuff. We haven't stopped in for that free will yet, but...
yeah, you need to do that as well. And, in fact, now that you got a little one on the way, you definitely got to do it.
Right. And because I know with my employer, I mean, they'll allow me to have maternity leave for, I think, 6 weeks, but I didn't know what the maximum is you're allowed, and of course, like you said, that family medical leave thing. So, all right, I'll go ahead and post that. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye. Oh, boy, yeah. I can't...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to answer them all sometimes, but sometimes you can't. Oh, boy, I don't know what else to tell him. Well, if he posts it on weekendappointment.com, we'll answer it. And, of course, if you're listening out there and you have a legal question and you can't get through, or you're listening to this as a rebroadcast or not live, go to weekendappointment.com, contact us directly, or post your question, and we'll get it answered. Mark, I was going to ask you about long-term care insurance. I mean, what age should I be buying that at?
I would start aggressively looking at it at age 50 because it's fairly inexpensive compared to someone. If you wait, okay, I'm about to retire, I'm 63, 64, you're going to see a noticeable price difference. And like any insurance, whether it's life insurance or what have you, you should always get it while you're young and healthy.
Right.
That's always going to affect the premium. But even Susie Orman in her books and so forth, everybody's agrees that age 50, 55, somewhere in that area, you should start looking at it and see if it makes sense, see if you can afford it. And it's part of the overall financial plan, because as you get to age 50, if you have a government job or, certain corporations, what have you, your out might be 55. I mean, you might qualify for a pension, or you might have your time in by a certain age limit and so forth. And you kind of want to have this in place so you don't erode the nest egg that you worked the last 40 years of your life.
Right.
Build up.
So if I'm 28, I'm probably a little too young to be thinking about buying long-term care insurance. But if I'm in my 40s, I should probably be planning on it.
Yeah. I mean, really, there are companies that were right, from age 20 on. And their whole thing is because there's a lot of folks who come down with different diseases and illnesses that might make them qualify for long-term care coverage. However, what I've always found, it's always better to look at from the age about age 50 to 55. And for those folks listening out there, once you cross age 70 and you're just applying for the first time, you'll see a noticeable price increase from age 70 to age 69. And that's just because the actuary tables tell the insurance companies that you're entering that zone where you're more prone to use the insurance,
right,
versus continue to pay premiums. Because most insurance coverage, when you start using it, tapping in for what it's used for, your premiums stop. You don't pay premiums while you're receiving the coverage.
Gotcha.
So, they want to get as many premiums out of you as possible before you start tapping into it. So the younger you get it, the cheaper it is.
Gotcha. And is that available like I know so little about this. Is it available like in a level term? Like, in other words, if I bought in when I was younger, I could keep my costs down over time?
You might be able to. The insurance company, in the language, Mr. Lawyer, it's going to say in there they reserve the right to increase your premium, but they have to increase it for all persons within that class. So if XYZ insurance company decides they're going to increase premiums for everybody in Pennsylvania, then that's okay, but they can't say we're going to increase premiums for everybody in Dauphin County. They have to do it within the complete class.
Gotcha.
And there are a few insurance carriers out there since they've had this insurance. And it's relatively new. It's like early 80s, mid-80s is when it really came into existence. There's a few insurance carriers out there that have not ever increased their prices. And there are a few that it seems like every other year they're doing it.
Right, and this is something they just, what do I want to say? This is something they're just experimenting with from that time period, so setting the rates became something of a challenge, I guess.
Right, because, if you think about it, if you were age 50 in 1990, you're now age 70, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You may or may not be tapping that policy yet. So most insurance carriers haven't realized people receiving the benefits. The lion's share of the people who have this insurance are still paying premiums. They haven't tapped into it yet. And I think as folks get older, as you talk about the baby boom generation and so forth, and turn 60 every 12 seconds or some crazy theory out there, that when these folks start tapping these policies, only the really good insurance companies are going to be able to pay these claims. So that's what's real important when you go get this insurance. If you're, if the insurance agent gives you the name of an insurance company you've never heard before,
right,
and your eyebrow goes up, well, you should ask, how financially strong is the insurance carrier? What's their ability to pay claims? And there's rating agencies that give you this stuff and make it crystal clear. You just want to make sure the agent's not getting a big fat commission to sell this particular company over the other. The big names are like John Hancock, Genworth, MetLife, Mass Mutual. It's the usual suspects. If you get into a situation where you don't understand or recognize that insurance company, you might want to just, ask for a second opinion, go to another agent and see what's out there.
Gotcha. Well, Mark, I got to wrap it up here because they're giving me the signal, but I want to thank you for being on the show. If somebody wanted to use your services as a financial planner to talk about insurance products or stocks, bonds, and all kinds of other financial vehicles, how would they get a hold of you?
You get in several different ways, but mainly the phone number here in the office is 717-509-4521, or you can reach me on my cell phone, which is 332-4395. And, of course, if you go onto the website, mirrorsfinancialpartners.com, you can send me an email from there, but I'll give you my email. It's Mark, M-A-R-K, at mirrorsfinancialpartners.com.
All right, Mark, thanks for joining us today. This has been Carl Rominger with Weekend Appointment, show where I answer legal questions. Don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com, just like it sounds, weekendappointment.com. You can post your questions throughout the week. We'll answer them on the show. Take care.
Thanks, Carl.